What happens when the coldest female billionaire in New York is forced to marry a broke Korean-American mechanic just to save her father's company? Arielle Han had killed deals worth more than some countries' GDP. She had fired men twice her age without blinking. She had buried grief, loneliness, and every soft thing inside herself beneath 40 floors of glass, steel, and silence. Nothing had ever made Arielle Han's hands shake. Until now. The paper sat on her grandfather's mahogany desk like a grenade with the pin already pulled. A marriage contract. Blank. Waiting for her name. 7 days, Arielle, Chairman Daeho Han said, his voice sharp and tired. 7 days, or Adrian Knox gets the board votes he needs. Everything your father built, everything this family built, gone. And Arielle stood very still. Stillness was her weapon. She had learned it young, after her mother walked away, after her father drowned himself in regret, after she realized no one was coming to save her. So she saved herself, brick by brick, deal by deal, sleepless night by sleepless night, until Han Sterling Freight became hers in every way that mattered. And now Adrian Knox wanted to rip it from her hands. There are other ways to block him, she said, her voice clean and controlled. A CEO's voice. Not anymore. Her grandfather pushed a file toward her. He has been buying proxy shares for 18 months. Quietly, brilliantly. I underestimated him. I will not underestimate him again. Arielle opened the file. A photograph stared back at her. A man in a faded black shirt, standing in front of a small repair shop in Brooklyn, grease on his hands, dark hair falling over tired eyes. Name: June Park. Occupation: mechanic. Status: widowed, single father. Financial status: nearly bankrupt. Arielle stared at the photo, like it had offended her bloodline. You want me to marry him? I want the company to survive. You want the CEO of a billion-dollar logistics empire to marry a mechanic? I want you alive long enough to keep your father's name from being buried by Knox. That sentence landed differently. Arielle looked up. For the first time, she saw something beneath her grandfather's command. Fear. Not for the company, for her. And before we go deeper, you already know this is amazing series kind of story. Love, power, secrets, and a truth that will shake the whole room. So stay with me, because the man she is about to look down on is not the man she thinks he is. Arielle picked up the pen. Set up the meeting, she said. The mechanic, with dead eyes. The garage smelled like motor oil, cold concrete, and survival. Brooklyn, in November, was gray and unforgiving. A hand-painted sign above the doors read, Park Auto Works. The letters were faded, but the place was clean. Too clean. Arielle noticed that immediately. She stepped out of her black Rolls-Royce, heels clicking against wet pavement, her bodyguard walking 2 steps behind her. Inside the garage, a man was underneath an old truck, visible only from the waist down. Boots scuffed, jeans stained, completely at ease beneath the wreckage of someone else's broken thing. Then he rolled out from under the truck and stood. And for one unforgivable half-second, Arielle forgot what she had come to control. June Park was not what she expected. He was tall, broad-shouldered, quiet in a way that felt dangerous. He wiped his hands on a cloth and looked at her without fear, without hunger, without the desperate admiration men usually performed around her. Just looked. Steady, unimpressed. Miss Han, he said. She lifted her chin. Mr. Park. A small girl appeared from the back room. 6 years old. Round cheeks. Dark curls, holding a stuffed rabbit by one ear. Daddy, she whispered. Is she the lady from the TV? June's face changed. Only for her. His entire expression softened. This is Hannah, he said. Arielle felt something move in her chest. She ignored it. I'll be direct, Arielle said, placing the folder on the workbench. This is a public marriage and a private arrangement. You move into my penthouse with your daughter. You attend events when required. You answer questions with discretion. In return, Hana receives the best education, full protection, and financial security. June didn't look at the folder. How much? $50,000 a month. He almost smiled. Almost. Keep it. Arielle blinked. I beg your pardon? The money. I don't want it. His eyes moved briefly toward Hana. Her school and safety. I'll accept. Not for me, for her. Arielle studied him. A poor man refusing money. That was either pride or a lie. The penthouse has private security, she added. Something passed across June's face. A shadow. Brief. Cold. Gone. Security, he repeated softly. Is that a problem? No, he said. That is exactly what I need. A fake marriage inside a glass castle. 3 days later, Arielle Han married June Park in a courthouse ceremony that lasted 4 minutes. No flowers, no music, no romance. Just signatures. A contract pretending to be a marriage. That evening, June and Hana moved into Arielle's 53rd floor penthouse in Midtown Manhattan. The apartment was built to intimidate. Glass walls, Italian marble, silent elevators, a private chef, a private gym, a private life. Hana walked into the foyer, looked up at the ceiling, and whispered, Daddy, this house is bigger than my school. June smiled. Don't run too fast, little star. Arielle turned away before the warmth in his voice could touch anything inside her. These are your rooms, she said. I sleep in the west wing. You stay in the east wing. We do not share a bedroom. We do not create emotional confusion. We do not interfere in each other's lives. June listened, nodded once, said nothing. That annoyed her more than an argument would have. For the first 2 weeks, they lived like ghosts in the same glass castle. Arielle worked 18-hour days fighting Adrian Knox's attacks. Shipping routes vanished. Investors pulled out. Ports delayed her containers without explanation. Everywhere she turned, Knox had already left fingerprints she could feel but not prove. Meanwhile, June woke up at 5 every morning. He cooked breakfast for Hana, packed her lunch, fixed broken cabinet hinges, repaired the guest bathroom faucet, left strong black coffee on the kitchen island for Arielle without ever saying a word. He never touched the household account she opened for him. Not $1. Not once. And every night, sometime after midnight, Arielle would see him on the balcony. A cheap burner phone pressed to his ear, his back to the city, his voice low enough for the wind to swallow. She told herself she was not watching him, but she was. Then one night, she heard 2 words through the glass. Watch Knox. Arielle stopped breathing. June's voice was calm, too calm. Don't move until I give the order. The invisible hand. The next morning, everything changed. Meridian Bank called first. They wanted to reopen negotiations. By noon, 2 investors who had abandoned Arielle suddenly returned. By Friday, a $200 million freight contract Knox had stolen was reinstated with better terms. The official email said only, "Circumstances have changed." Arielle sat in her office, staring at the screen. Circumstances did not change. People changed them. She went home early. June was in the kitchen making grilled cheese for Hana. An ordinary scene. Too ordinary. If Meridian's Singapore subsidiary flagged Knox's collateral exposure, June said without looking up from the pan, the recalculation would take about 72 hours. After that, the domino effect writes itself. Arielle froze. What did you just say? He flipped the sandwich. Hana, your answer on question 4 is wrong. Check the decimal. June. He finally looked at her. Mild, patient, unbothered. Grilled cheese? That night, Arielle followed him to the balcony. She stayed hidden behind the doorframe, barely breathing. Then she heard him speak into the phone. Tell the Singapore board if they side with Knox again, I will erase their market valuation before sunrise. He wasn't asking. He wasn't threatening. He was informing. Like a king giving weather reports, Arielle pressed her back against the wall. For the first time, she understood something clearly. She knew absolutely nothing about the man she had married. The charity gala. The charity gala was supposed to expose him. Instead, it exposed everyone else. The grand Ashford ballroom glittered with chandeliers, champagne, diamonds, and lies. New York's richest families filled the room, all of them pretending not to stare when Arielle walked in with June Park on her arm. June wore a black tailored tuxedo, and the mechanic disappeared. The man beside her looked like power in human form. He moved slowly, not because he was unsure, because he did not need to rush. Whispers moved through the crowd. That's him? The mechanic? She married him to save the company? He cleans up well. Arielle kept her chin high, but her arm tightened around his. June noticed. Of course he noticed. You don't have to hold me like I'm a scandal, he murmured. She looked at him sharply. I am managing optics. No, he said calmly. You're bracing for impact. Before she could respond, Adrian Knox appeared. Tall, polished, cruel. His smile was designed to wound. Arielle, he said, kissing the air beside her cheek. You look magnificent. Then he turned to June. And this must be the garage. Miracle. The men around him laughed. June did not. Knox stepped closer. Tell me, Mr. Park, do you understand hostile acquisitions, or do you only understand oil changes? Arielle felt anger rise in her throat, but June placed one calm hand at her waist, not to control her, to steady her. Then he looked at Knox. I understand enough. Knox smirked. Do you? June's voice dropped. Your Cayman structure under Harlow Holdings was audited last week. The weapons procurement files hidden in the second partition are already with federal investigators. Your mother's estate was leveraged to cover margin calls, and the Belize accounts you thought were invisible became visible 6 hours ago. Knox's face lost all color. The laughter died. The ballroom went quiet in sections, like a wave of fear spreading through expensive perfume and champagne. Knox whispered, Who told you that? June leaned closer. No one tells me things, Adrian. I own the systems people use to hide them. Knox stepped back. For the first time in Arielle's life, she watched Adrian Knox look truly afraid. Then her eyes dropped to June's wrist. His watch. Simple, elegant, impossible. A one-of-one prototype rumored to belong to a ghost trillionaire known only as JVP, a man no one had photographed. A man whispered about in financial rooms where even billionaires lowered their voices. Arielle's heart began to pound. June, she whispered, who are you? He did not answer, but the corner of his mouth moved, just once. And somehow that was worse than silence. The ghost billionaire. That night, Arielle hired 4 private investigators, 2 former intelligence contractors, 1 forensic data analyst, 1 retired federal profiler. Within 72 hours, all 4 returned with the same answer. June Park did not exist. His birth certificate passed surface checks but collapsed under pressure. His garage employment history was only 3 years old. Before that, there was nothing. No school records, no tax trail, no credit history, no immigration footprint, nothing. The data analyst called her personally. Miss Han, he said, voice low. The wall around this man's past is not commercial. It is not criminal. It is beyond military grade. Whoever built it has resources. Most governments don't. Can you break through it? A long pause. No. And if you value your life, you should stop asking. Arielle dismissed them all. Then she sat alone in her office for an hour without moving. When she came home that evening, the penthouse felt different. June was at the kitchen island, still watching her, not suspiciously, knowingly. He had known she would investigate him. He had simply waited. You should have asked me, he said. Arielle's breath caught. Would you have told me the truth? No. Then I chose correctly. For the first time, something like amusement flickered in his eyes. Then the power went out. The entire penthouse dropped into darkness. Arielle turned. June was already moving. Not rushing. Moving. Purposefully. Then came the sound. A lock giving way. Footsteps. Multiple. Practiced. Inside her home, June's voice changed instantly. Hana. The little girl appeared in the hallway, sleepy and confused. Daddy? Quiet game, he said softly. Now. Hana nodded. No fear. She had done this before. That realization chilled Arielle more than the darkness. June opened a hidden panel beneath the kitchen island and removed a black tactical weapon Arielle had never seen in her life. Her mind short-circuited. June. Panic room, he said. Take Hana. Lock the door. Do not open it until I say the word North Star. Come with us. I will. But he did not. He walked toward the threat like a man returning to something familiar. The man who owned the world. Through the reinforced glass of the panic room, Arielle watched the man she thought was a mechanic become something else entirely. 4 armed men entered the penthouse. June did not hide. He moved with brutal precision. Fast. Silent. Controlled. It was not chaos. It was dismantling. Within minutes, the attackers were on the ground, disarmed, restrained, and groaning against the marble floor. Then helicopters thundered above the penthouse. Ropes dropped past the shattered glass. Men in black suits entered from the terrace with terrifying coordination. Not police, not private security. Something higher. A silver-haired Korean man stepped forward, calm as midnight. Sir, he said to June, perimeter secure. Knox's men are neutralized. Chairman Beck is waiting for your command. Sir. The word hit Arielle harder than the attack. June accepted it like it belonged to him. He walked to the panic room and tapped the glass. North Star. Arielle opened the door with trembling hands. Hana ran into his arms. June held his daughter tightly, closing his eyes for one brief human second. Then he looked at Arielle. My name is not June Park, he said quietly. Her blood went cold. My name is Jae-hyun Vale Park, founder and sole owner of Vale Dominion Holdings. Arielle's knees nearly weakened. Vale Dominion was not a company. It was a myth. A ghost empire rumored to control sovereign banks, shipping corridors, private armies, political debt, and the invisible financial systems beneath global power. Your JVP, she whispered. The man who owns the world. He looked away. No, he said softly. I am a father who had to disappear. The fall of Adrian Knox. Then he told her everything. 6 years ago, a syndicate of corrupt governments and criminal financiers used Vale Dominion's infrastructure to move illegal money across continents. Jae-hyun discovered it. He refused to protect them, so they came for him. But they missed. They killed his wife instead. A car explosion in Geneva, made to look like an accident. Hana was only a baby. Jae-hyun had 30 seconds to choose between revenge and survival. He chose his daughter. He erased himself. Became June Park. Moved to Brooklyn. Covered his hands in grease. Let the world believe the richest man alive had vanished. Arielle's voice broke. My grandfather knew. Yes, Jae-hyun said. Chairman Han was one of my earliest mentors. When he learned the syndicate had traced me to Brooklyn, he created the marriage arrangement. To protect you? To protect Hana. Arielle swallowed. And me? Jae-hyun stepped closer. Your grandfather knew Knox was not just trying to take your company. He was going to destroy you. The marriage gave me cover, but it gave you a weapon. 2 days later, Adrian Knox made his final move. He called an emergency board vote. Leaked false stories to the financial press, triggered panic in the markets, paid allies to abandon Arielle publicly. By 9 a.m., the boardroom of Han Sterling Freight was full. By 9:12, Adrian Knox believed he had won. Then the doors opened. Arielle entered first. Black suit, red lips, eyes like steel. Jae-hyun walked beside her in a charcoal 3-piece suit, the rare prototype watch gleaming on his wrist. The room changed before he said a word. Knox stood. You, he whispered. Jae-hyun did not sit. He walked slowly behind Knox's chair. You sent armed men into a home where my daughter was sleeping. Knox began sweating. I didn't know who you were. That is why men like you lose, Jae-hyun said. You only respect power after it introduces itself. Chairman Beck stepped forward with a tablet. Executing now, sir. The screens around the boardroom lit up. Knox's offshore accounts froze. His companies collapsed in sequence. His hidden debts were bought out. His encrypted files were forwarded to federal investigators. His allies started receiving emergency calls. One by one, they stood and walked away from him. Knox looked around the room like a man watching his own funeral. Please, he whispered, I'll give you sterling. I'll give you everything. And Arielle finally spoke. You cannot give me what was never yours. Federal agents entered minutes later. Knox did not fight. There was nothing left in him. As they dragged him out, he looked once at Jae-hyun. Who are you? Jae-hyun's voice was calm. The man you should have left alone. The Empress and the King. When the doors closed, silence filled the boardroom. Arielle sat at the head of the table, exhausted and alive. Her company still stood. Her enemy was gone, but the man beside her was no longer her fake husband. He was a secret so large it had swallowed the room. 3 days later, Jae-hyun came to Arielle's office and placed the prenuptial agreement on her desk. It had already been torn in half. The threat is gone, he said. Hana and I do not need to hide anymore. Arielle looked at the paper, then at him. So you're leaving? He said nothing. That silence hurt more than she expected. She had prepared herself for this moment. She had planned to release him with elegance, with control, with the cold grace of a woman who needed no one. But she was tired of pretending. Don't, she said. Jae-hyun stopped. Arielle stood slowly. Somewhere between the courthouse and the night those men came into my home, I stopped pretending this was only business. I did not plan to love you. I did not want to need anyone. But I love you. So, and I am done performing like I don't. For the first time since she met him, Jae-hyun looked shaken, not afraid, moved. He crossed the office in 4 steps. I spent 6 years hiding from the world, he said. But somehow, in your glass tower, I found a home. Arielle's eyes filled. He touched her face gently. I do not want to be your business partner, Arielle Han. His voice lowered. I want to be your husband. When he kissed her, it was not a contract. It was surrender. It was power laying down its armor. It was 2 lonely people finally choosing truth over survival. 6 months later, Han Sterling Freight and Vale Dominion merged in a deal that rewrote global logistics, finance, and trade. The analysts called it impossible. The market called it historic. Amazing Seri would call it what it really was, a love story that started as survival and became an empire. In the final board meeting, Arielle sat at the head of the table. Jae-hyun sat beside her, and little Hana sat at the far end with a bowl of ice cream, a stuffed rabbit, and a notebook full of stock prices she was pretending to understand. Arielle watched them both and smiled. Not the smile she used for cameras. Not the smile she wore like armor. A real smile. The kind that reached her eyes and stayed there. Because once she thought she was marrying a broke mechanic to save her company. But the truth was far more dangerous. She had married the man who secretly owned the world. And somehow, he chose her. So tell me, Amazing Seri says softly, if you were Arielle, would you forgive Jae-hyun for hiding the truth? Or would you walk away from a love built on secrets?